Our guest speaker is Colby. He is a Bluefield, West Virginia resident where he is a traveling manager for Grant's Supermarket. He is also the host of Grant's 10-Minute Meals. Colby is known for his original plays and his work with Four Pals Production, a popular and successful theater personality. Colby is applauded by audiences across the region and beyond, not only for his engaging stories, but also for his commitment to providing theater opportunities for his neighbors. He is an award-winning playwright and is one of four friends who combined their creative talents to form Four Pals Production in 2009. According to Four Pals Production, the organization is dedicated to bringing original plays and musicals to the stage and promoting the arts through community involvement. There's also a play coming up in February. It is The House Divided, the sequel to The 11th Hour.
That's correct.
And if you haven't, are you doing The 11th Hour again?
Hopefully not.
Is there a script available for people to read if in case they haven't?
I could make one available if someone wanted to read it.
Since it's a sequel.
It was a cast of 40 people, 44 people with people ranging from age 7 to 77 in the show.
That would be beautiful.
So it's hard to get that many people together.
The stage is yours.
Thank you. Again, my name is Colby, and the good news is I'm not going to keep you guys here forever. Can I stand for people to get up and talk forever and ever and ever about nothing? I'm going to get to the point. Hopefully, we can, take some questions. How many of you are in here are writers? You love to write? Good. Well, today I'm going to be talking about a million little things. Because it's a million little things that makes us who we are as a writer, makes us who we are as an actor, makes us who we are when we do speeches and any sort of presentation. I grew up in McDowell County, went to a little elementary school on the hill called Crumpler Elementary. I would eventually go to school in Elkhorn and then on to North Fork High School. And my folks were poor, so they couldn't afford to send me to college. In fact, my folks were so poor, I welcome that. Just said, well. So I decided to go to the Army to enlist under the GI Bill so that I could afford to send myself to college. And I got out in 1990, a fellow veteran here, by the way. And would go on to Concord University where I would major in communications and minor in theater. I worked for the TV station for about 15 years, and I would find myself on the way to work sometimes just praying, Lord, please just help me through these days. Because these demons that, I have to deal with, I'm sure you all have worked for some of those people. And I had a news director, who was impossible to please. And after 15 years of working 24/7, not having a holiday off, not having a day off, period, I decided that I'm going to take a leap of faith. I went in and put in my 2 weeks notice because I didn't want to do that anymore. And I knew that, we wanted to get involved with theater. I took a couple of odd jobs here and there. I worked with you at Walmart for a few. And ended up basically at Grant's Supermarket, who's a wonderful company to work for. People think you work in television unit, they think you make a fortune. That's not so. You work forever and you really don't make a whole lot of money. In fact, I make more at Grant's than I made at the TV station. And Grant's is a wonderful place to work because they sponsor, like I said, all of our shows. They're very community minded. They do so much in our community to help everybody, pets, the elderly. Even if you guys have any events, that you have coming up for your organizations, we do donation requests. If you guys need some money to help fund something, come and see us at Grants. Fill out a donation request and we'll help you too. Anyways, today we're going to be talking about a million little things, like I said. Today we're going to be talking about the elements of writing a play and producing a play. As most of you know, we're not born with an instruction manual. Our our environment, our families, our experiences, and the million little things make us who we are. Guide our writing, guide our producing, and even guide our projects that we work on. I always knew I wanted to be a storyteller. I mean, from the time I was 4 or 5 years old, I was always running around the house telling stories. My mama called them lies. But I always wanted to foster and be better at what I did. And when I went to Concord University, I encountered, as Scott and I were talking about, some people who really, really guided me into the right path. Jim Lyle, Ann Lyle, Dr. Berger, who just passed, as you and I were speaking about earlier. It's our laughter, our tears, our success, our grief. All of these and a million other little things will guide us in what we write. Who knows the symbol used for theater? The
masks.
The masks. Comedy and tragedy. It's, how many of you have had things happen to you that were just so funny, I mean, that you've almost just died? It was so funny. And how many of you have had things that brought you to your knees because they were so tragic? It's these things that we build on who guide our writing. Sometimes when I write, I always kind of know where I want to go. But if we let our experiences, our grief, those laughter, those tears, those funny things that have happened to us along the way, and the tragedies, if we let those things guide our writing is going to be stronger because those things are real. You can't fake a grief. You can't fake the funniest things that's ever happened to you. I've always told that you write about what you know. I'm from Southern West Virginia, and most of the plays that I've written has a Southern West Virginia feel. We're a strong people. We're a pride people, or proud people. We're friendly people, and we're a helpful people. I always try to let those things guide who I am and what I write. The very first play that I ever wrote was called The Passing of Pearl. And The Passing of Pearl was a story about, did you see The Passing of Pearl? Did you see that? We did that here at Bluefield State. I mean, I'm not sure whether you guys were here at the time, but we normally perform most of our productions here. The Passing of Pearl was about what we do when life ceases to be as we know it. The time I wrote this play, I had just left the TV station. And I wanted to take a little time off before I figured out what I wanted to do in life. And I was going through the exact same thing. What do we do when life as we know ceases to be? So I designed this story about 3 women who worked in a cafe. And these 3 characters reminded me of the people who I grew up with in church. I went to Galilee Baptist Church up Norfolk Hollow. You probably know where Galilee was. Well, the old Galilee was way, way up on the hill. I mean, there had to have been 300 steps getting to the top of the hill to go to this church. And I can remember, before we go to church, my mama would always cook a big breakfast. We'd have fried chicken, we'd have gravy and toast. And I'd always be like, Mama, why are we eating so heavy before we go to church? Well, I soon found out. Those people be in church so long. I'm not kidding you. We go to church, you get out of church Monday Night Football. So you sitting in church, and I'd be sitting in church, and those women downstairs would be cooking fried chicken. And granted, I've had fried chicken for breakfast. The smell of that fried chicken and that food cooking, I'm like, I hope this pastor hurry up. But I'd always sneak downstairs and watch those women and hope they'd give me something to eat during the process. And I loved the way these women interacted with each other and carried on. And I formed my story after these 3 women. But the 3 women in my story worked in a diner down the street from the Lorraine Motel where Dr. Martin Luther King was killed. And one of the women passed away, and the other two women was left to carry on. The diner was about to close because the lady who died owned the diner. And these women had a front row on the civil rights movement. They'd seen so much. They'd seen marches. They'd seen sit-ins, and they'd seen people get. It was in the '60s, when they'd seen all this. But my story took place in the '80s. They were harking back on everything that's happened, everything that this diner has seen, and they told the story through the eyes of these people who'd seen it all. And in the whole process, they were wondering, where do we go from here? Well, to make a long story short, the lady ends up leaving these people the diner, and the daughter who came in was going to sell everything. Basically, was going to build condos there. To make a long story short, she didn't get any. She got some money, but she didn't get the diner, which is what she really wanted. But the story was about secrets and forgiveness, and like I said, what do we do when life ceases to be as we go on? I did go on to write two more. It was hugely successful. In fact, it won the West Virginia State Theater Competition in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. I went on to write two more stories in this series because it was just really popular and people wanted more for these characters. And I wrote a follow-up called Pearls of Wisdom, which everybody loved, but it wasn't my favorite. I didn't think, I thought it was a dud. Not everything you do or write will be the best. And like I said, people loved it, but I didn't. And the third in this series was called The Throwaway Family. When I was in college, I worked for a company called Voca. We took care of the mentally handicapped and the physically handicapped, and it was one of the most challenging yet rewarding jobs that I've ever had in my life. But eventually I would have to quit this job because it was just so heavy. I saw this lady almost die 3 times, and I really grew to care for this lady, and I'm like, I just can't take this anymore. It was just too much for me, and I knew that, and I was hoping that someone who was better equipped to deal with this could fill in. Well, anyways, these people, many of their families never even came to visit them. I mean, the holidays, we were the only family they had. But I treated them just like I would my brothers and sisters. When I went to a baseball game, I'd take them people with me. I went to the mall, I'm like, come on, get on in the van, let's go to the mall. And that's how they wanted to be treated. But when I wrote The Throwaway Family, it took place at a nursing home. And these people were older, but it was the same situation. It was these and a million other little things that I learned at that job that created this story, and it was one of the best works I think I've ever written because it really touched at the heart of what's happening every day at nursing homes, every day at places where folks are just left and thrown away. And after that, bullying was really popular, so I wrote a story about bullying, and we wanted it to be a children's story that we could take into schools. And my partner Jim created a huge aquarium set. And it was like fish and octopus, stuff that kids would really, get into. And we took this story into schools, and hopefully, we touched somebody. I don't think bullying will ever be, banished by any means whatsoever, but we wanted to do our part. And then I wrote The 11th Hour. And then this is when I really had to pull from those a million little things that I grew up with. We lived at the foot of the cross, literally. Like I said, that church was way up on the hill, and it was 300 to 400 steps to get there, and we lived at the bottom of that hill. And like I said, we went to church forever. But I can remember all of the people I went to church with, how they smelled, how those women sat in the same seat. Miss Johnson sat in that same front row seat every time. You better not sit in their seat.
No, sir.
And all of these many little things that I learned when I was in church helped me craft this story. The 11th Hour, we performed here at Bluefield State. I'm a Common Core graduate. We performed here at Bluefield State. And you like to get 50, people to come see, 50 to 100 people to come see your show here at the auditorium sometimes. There were around 675 people who came to see this show. And they shut the door. I mean, because of the fire marshal. People were sitting in the aisles, and I just could not believe how popular this was. And it was word of mouth that sold this show. And it was the realism of it, because this show, you saw people you went to church with. The story was about two churches within a mile of each other, a black church and a white church. The set was split down the middle. Thank you for the wonderful set, by the way. And the black church gets washed away by a flood, and the white pastor says, y'all come worship with us. Well, we had some black folks didn't want to go to the white church. We had some white folks didn't want the black folks coming. Well, they end up coming together, and they formed a choir, and they taught each other how to worship together. But in this story, we had a set of sisters on the white side and a set of sisters on the black side. They were the glue to this whole story. Symbolically, it said, oh, y'all got the same people in y'all church we got. Those sisters, they ran away 3-4 pastors, half the congregation. Well, nobody did enough to join the church. They ran away half the choir. But it was hysterical to look at and to see these people interact. And before we did the play, we always said, if you see somebody in this show that you do not recognize, it's probably you. And it was so true, and it really was, because we, I think, hit on every type of person who you worship with. And it was the young folks who taught these people how to worship together, and the choir, of course. And the show was so popular, and everybody said, I've almost gotten out of writing sequels to shows, but folks were like, you've got to write a sequel to this. So I wrote A House Divided, which takes place a year later, and this will go up in February. We open at the Chuck Mathena Center. We've been so blessed. To be totally honest with you, years ago, I thought to myself, I wouldn't have performed at the Chuck Mathena Center. That's, way above what we do, but as a theater company, Four Pals got better and better, and our shows got better and better, and we grew more popular and more popular, and like I said, we would eventually start turning people away. Then the Chuck Mathena Center got, wind of what we were doing right here, and they invited us to come there. So we opened our show here at the Chuck Mathena Center in February. I hope you come to see it. Then the following week we're going to be at the Summit Theater, and I know we're going to Concord University, and hopefully Bluefield State will invite us here as well, because we love coming here. I feel like this is my second home sometimes, because we've done so many shows here. And I'm currently writing a show for 2020. People think you just pull a show out your butt. You don't pull a show out your butt? It takes forever to write a show. I'm writing a show for the year 2020, and it's called Hearts of Coal. And it really gets at the heart of Southern West Virginia. I grew up in a coal camp. My daddy worked in the coal mines. And I can remember my daddy getting off on the mines, and he'd come home with a little lunch bucket. And I'd run up and I'd be like, what you bring me? And he'd always have these little pink snowballs. Anybody ever seen the little pink snowballs? They're real fluffy, got little cream filled with chocolate. Delicious. And he'd always save me one of them. And I never really realized why my daddy wouldn't always eat all of his lunch. And I later found out, actually when I was doing research for this show, that the men in the mines wouldn't eat all their lunch because, they always thought, well, what if we had a mine collapse? What if there was an accident in the mines? They always wanted to save something should they be stuck there for days and whatnot. So he wasn't saving that for me. But it made me feel good. And this show is about two families who live in southern West Virginia. The white family's a little, excuse me, a little under the weather. The white family's a little bit more well off, and the black family is living paycheck to paycheck like most of us do. And this place takes place in 1968, I think 6 or 7 years after Brown versus Board of Education, where they desegregated the schools. Well, in McDowell County, the schools integrated I think I can't remember, I think in 1966. This story takes place in Gary, West Virginia, and the black mother is the maid to the white family. The black father works in the mines along with the white father, who's also a preacher. And I really had to dig into some of my inner grief and things that have happened to me in my life to really write this story. The matriarch of the white family, her name is Marlene, and I had a sister named Marlene. She had a child when she was like, I think 16, and she lost her child. And my sister never got over that, and she died a few years ago. And I built this character, and I even named her Marlene, this white lady. The story opens, and she's grieving her son, her 21-year-old son, who was killed in a horrible hunting accident. And this lady just can't seem to get over her grief. And the story takes place the day that the court has come back and said they let this guy Jimmy Lee off, who killed her son. He was shot, and and it was an accident, but it doesn't matter. She still lost her son. And the black lady kind of helps her deal with her grief. And both families have two 17-year-old sons. The white family wants their son, he's not the smartest, pencil in the shed. They want him to go and work in the mines with his dad. Or they might even want him to go to be a preacher, just like his father. Well, the black family wants their son, 17-year-old son, to be the first black person to go to college in their family. Well, these two boys, have been going to school together for 2 years, and they fast become best of friends. Some of the black folks, give them a hassle because, the black kid has a white best friend, and vice versa on the other side. But, that doesn't matter to them. Well, these two boys decide they want to go off to Vietnam.
Wow.
And they do. And when the first act closes, you hear a knock on each door, and set split down the middle. The only thing that anchors these two families is a coal stove. And, you see them share that one coal stove, although, symbolically it's in each of their homes. There's a knock on each of the doors, and the families are waiting on their sons to come home for Thanksgiving. This is a year and a half later after they left. And one of the women opens the door, and her son walks through. The other woman opens the door, and you see a flag being handed through the door.
Wow.
And the curtains close. And that's how the first act ends. I won't tell you any more about this show because I'd really like for you to come and see it. It is called Hearts of Coal. And in this story, while the white lady is grieving, the black lady says to this woman, look, Miss Marlin, you got a son who's 17 years old who needs you. I know you're grieving right now, but Christmas is 2 days away, and Charlie he deserves to have a good Christmas. You got to snap out of this. And again, as I told you, she kind of helps her through her grief. She even takes her to the hospital, gets her help. And during the second act of the play, roles reverse. And it's about how we need each other to survive. We can't do this alone. With everything, you can tell that from everything that's going on now.
Oh, yeah.
In the news, the local politics, national politics, we need each other.
Yeah.
And that's a universal thing. I'm going to wrap this up by telling you that every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I don't like starting my, we've all heard once upon a time. That's how we've normally heard stories begin, fairy tales and stories begin. I don't like starting my story in the beginning. I try to start my stories because, to tell you the truth, I do this because I don't want to be sitting up in the theater watching the play for 2 hours. If your play is over an hour and a half, your play is too long. Now, I know the 11th hour went a little bit longer because we had music and the story was what we're seeing, but that's one of our only shows that's been over an hour and a half. I start in the middle. I want my stories to peel like an onion. I start in the middle and you catch tidbits of the beginning through the dialogue of what's happening in the middle of the play. That's one of a million little things, and a million little ways to tell your stories. In Four Pals production, when you produce something, producing a play, normally when you go see a play, if it's good, you think, oh my God, that was good. You don't think about all the effort that's been put into this, all the countless rehearsals, all of the many hours you're studying dialogue. The beauty of Four Pals production and what we do is we have a team that is just so dynamic. My partner Jim here, he builds the sets. He's built some of the most beautiful sets I've ever seen in my life. Skip Crane. Anybody know Skip Crane?
Yes.
Skip Crane could sell ice to an Eskimo. And he's brilliant at promoting, getting on television, getting on radio, the newspaper, getting us in a medley. If there's anybody, if we're on the lips of anybody's tongue, 9 times out of 10, it's because of Skip. Thomas Lester, brilliant director. I always like him to direct my shows because he has an eye and he kind of pulls it out of you. You get on stage and you half-assing stuff, he ain't gonna put up with that. If you ain't gonna give 100%, he'll tell you, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Let's try that again. And that's what you need as a director. You need people who are gonna tell you the truth. I'd much rather hear the truth. I'd much rather somebody say, Bang, I don't know if that's working. Let's try something else. Rather than appease me and say, oh, that was bad. No, what? Anyways, like I said, the things that happen to us in life, the events, all the laughter, all the tears, all the comedy, all the tragedy, let these things guide your work. When you're writing something, draw upon it. Creating a character, none of your characters can be alike. I'm the youngest of 9 in my family. And thank God that, I'm the youngest of 9 because every last one of my brothers and sisters had different personalities. I feed upon that. I feed upon the people I encounter, the people I work with, my instructors. I'm a people person. I love to watch people. And this is what guides me in my writing. Let it guide you. Let the events and the circumstances and things that happen to you in life and all the other million little things that you experience guide who you are and what you write. Now, does anybody have any questions?
I do. I've always wanted to ask you this. How hard, or was it hard for you all, because you seem so connected with your work whenever you write the plays? I think I read that you had sold one of your plays.
Well, actually, we sold 2 of the plays.
Was it hard to let one of your babies of sort? Was it hard to give it up? Almost
No.
like to let someone else take charge of it?
No, because that's one thing. The first time, yes.
Okay.
But as a writer, there can't be but one boss, and the director will tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
There can only be one. 2-man enter, 1-man leave.
Mm-hmm.
An old adage from Beyond Thunderdome.
Mm-hmm.
After you write a play, the director's in charge. Now the director may come to me and say, hey, what do you think if we change this a little bit, or if we combine these 2 characters because we don't have enough people? The director will sometimes come for guidance, but while he's directing, I can't be like, no, that ain't the way I wrote it,
Okay.
You can't do that. And as far as selling the play, we sold to a Los Angeles producer, we sold The 11th Hour, and they are currently trying to shop that to Netflix. And they also bought the sequel, House Divided, which we've not even performed yet.
Wow.
And they've also shown interest in Hearts of Coal.
Huh.
So, I didn't write it to sell it. I wrote it, for Four Pals production. And don't get me wrong, they pay you a little bit up front, but you don't really make any money unless someone buys my work.
Yeah.
But they're really wanting me to get them Hearts of Coal before December. And I'm halfway through with this, but I'm not gonna rush it. They'll get it when I'm done with it.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, like, you know, would it, I won't say bother you, but to see the way you wrote it, to, you know, to see if they made changes?
Well, they're gonna make changes. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
see, what I write is called a stage play.
Okay,
They turn it from a stage play into a screenplay,
okay.
which means, you know, like in the upcoming House Divided,
Mhm.
part of the show takes place in church, part of it takes place in a beauty parlor. So instead of having the beauty parlor on stage, they'll have a physical beauty parlor somewhere in the town. And some of it may take place in the grocery store, some of it may take place in church. And the dialogue, they also change up the dialogue a little bit too, you know, and I'll have no problem with that because it's to be expected.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Bing, I'm just wondering if when you're in the process of writing and then rehearsing and then performing a particular play, if you are so involved in the process that sometimes it takes a while to gestate afterwards, say you go to another project and come back and then revisit this, does it hit you emotionally at a lot deeper level, having stepped away from it for a while, to then come back a piece of the impact of the play that you may not have realized because you were so engrossed in the boots on the ground pieces of it? Do you ever come back to one or re-perform one?
Yes.
That's been there, and it hits you at a whole different level?
Yes. To me, I'm most hit hard when it's over and when I really have, to me, acting is, I don't have to have a therapist because twice a year I get to be somebody else for 3 or 4 months and I don't have to be myself. That's the beauty of it. The hard part is having to let that person go. Having to step away from all the people that I've been around because it's like a family. Like the 11th hour, that was really hard for me. The little girls in the 11th hour, they were just magical. And I missed them, and I missed, you know, Tom, who was the preacher who I played a preacher, the preacher who played opposite for me. When after I left the show, one of the last nights of the show, we normally come out and we greet the audience, and a lady said to me, "Are you a preacher in real life?" I said, "No, but I'm a sinner in real life." It's the missing of the people. Now, the passing of Pearl, we did that 8 years ago, and we just, last year, we revived the show with a new cast. I think, was I the only original cast member of that show? With an entire new cast. But the beauty of that was, we've learned so much, excuse me, we've learned so much in 8 years that the show to me was 10 times better. And that was the show we won an award for. It was 10 times better than it was when we originally done it because when you know better, you do better. As an actor, as a director, as a set builder, the set was better. The direction was better and everything. Anybody else?
I actually participate in the theater club here.
Uh-huh.
Colby decided she's actually our president. And so we do a play every so, you know, we try to revive the theater performances here for the local club.
Oh, wonderful.
So my question is to you, when you go about getting costumes and your prop setup, I know we try to keep our props minimal, and we have tried to do our own costuming, but do you have any suggestions on like what you look for, or like what was your guide when you went to go do the plays? What stood out to you as far as, I mean, I know the setting and all of that, but what guided you to how to keep your projects under a certain budget line?
The Salvation Army.
Okay.
The Salvation Army, things that you have at home. The more that you can bring of what you have because he's always under budget.
And I always go over.
And he does always go over. We're gonna reel him in here a little bit. But try to borrow, beg, and steal. That's what you do to keep keep it under budget. But the main thing you really need, to tell you the truth, is a good stage director who's going to make sure that cup gets out there on the table when that cup needs to be there. Who's going to make sure that purse is on standby for that girl to take her purse out when she comes. That's what you need. And if you get a good stage director, they're going to help you find most of this stuff. And what we do is we start early. Like, we're working on Hearts of Coal for 2020. We're already looking for a coal stove. We already have a couple things already that we kind of need for that show. Costuming, especially Salvation Army, they have a lot of dated stuff anyways. You know what I mean? Yard sales, and don't forget the power of Facebook. Anybody out there got a such and such and such and such that I can have for a theater project? And if people know that it's a non-profit, they'll be more than happy to help you with anything that you need. And
Before you actually started writing, what gave you that push to start writing? Like, did you think, man, I want to start writing, but you didn't have that push to actually start doing it? And what gave you that push?
well,
That makes sense.
when I was in college, I had to have, and Scott knows a little bit about this. When I was in college, I had to have, you have to have a special project, that you work on. And we already had a news program, which I participated in that too. We already had, we had a newspaper and everything. We'd never had a college soap opera at Concord. And I'm a huge soap opera fan, I ain't gonna lie. I like Young and the Restless. And I wanted to write my own soap opera. And I talked to Dr. Berger, and Dr. Berger was like, I said, Doc, I want to write my own soap opera. That's going to be my special project. And he looked at me and he said, what you waiting on? So, that was all I needed to go ahead and do it. And I knew that I was going to beg, borrow, and steal to get people to participate. I couldn't pay nobody, but I did have a little stash of wine that I could invite people over after, we'd take. So I have a bottle of wine on standby to a glass of wine. You'd be surprised when college what people do for a glass of wine. So all my actors would all get together after and share a bottle of wine. But because I couldn't, like I said, afford to pay them. That was what I needed a special project, and I knew that was something I knew about. Write about what you know, like I just said. And I can remember that the second season, I wrote the first season, and it went over really, really well. And by this time, my GI money was running out. And I told Dr. Berger. Dr. Berger said to me, well, what are you going to do this semester? Where are you going to take this show? And I said, Doc, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it because I got to get a job, I got to work. He was like, well, we'll make it your work study. That was the kind of man he was.
Yeah.
He just passed this week. We've all been a little upset about that. But, plus, getting paid to do it the second semester kind of was a little motivation too. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good to have you here.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. I was just telling them that, about our upcoming show, which is the sequel to the 11th Hour, and we certainly hope you guys have us back for that, considering the 11th Hour was such a huge success here. Do anybody else have any questions?
How about now, I know the incentive now, you just shared with us, the incentive you gave to all your actors and so on. How about now, because I know that huge cast, and I was there at the Summit Theatre for that wonderful production of the 11th Hour. What's the enticement for these actors? Do you still provide a bottle of wine, or is there something more?
No, to tell you the truth, I don't really drink that much anymore, you know, but the incentive now for 4 Pals production is every year we have we're a non-for-profit, by the way. We don't get paid not one single red penny. And this man works like a dog. I mean, it consumes him. And he never half-asses anything. You should see his sets. I mean, they could be, you know, on Broadway. Our incentive is the football stars. Front page of the paper, all up on TV. Basketball stars, track stars, all get all the attention. Well, the kids, you know, who are in theater, they don't get anything. You never read about, you know, Jimmy Lou, you know, who's performing in this on the paper. We have a theater festival every year where we give away thousands of dollars to kids who don't get that attention. We give away Best Actor awards, we give away Rising Star awards, and this is one day that we allow them to come up, and it's almost like a little, you know, Emmy awards. They come up and they accept their awards and they thank whoever they want, and they get a little prize money that'll help them towards college. That don't get me wrong, it's not a fortune, but everything we make that we don't spend on a set or to pay for our, you know, traveling vehicles, and we do give a small stipend to all of our actors because we want them to feel like, you know, you can do this as a job. Now, hopefully you'll be making a lot more than we're going to pay you, but this is a start. But for us, it's seeing those people who don't get the everyday recognition. That's my reward because that's one of the happiest days of my life every year. We're 8 years into the theater festival, and the theater festival started, the kids, you know, we invite high schools from all over the two Virginias. When it first started, the kids were okay. Next year, they got a little bit better. And then we started seeing how these kids were intermingling with each other in the Great Hall over at the Arts and Science Center, and how it became a friendly competition. These kids today, their productions are better than most productions I've seen. Grown people do. And that's our reward. And you've seen almost everything we've ever done. And we'd like to thank, too, Bluefield State for having 4 Pals here, because they have us here almost every year. And it's, like I told, you know, Jim, this is like a little second home to me. And it really is. And I want to thank you for having me back, because when you first asked me, I told you no, because we're in the middle of 2 productions right now. We're doing a Christmas show here. We're doing a production for the February show, House Divided, and I'm also writing a show. But you convinced me. You told me that I should come, and I'm so glad I did. And I want to thank you all for having me. And I hope that you've learned. If you haven't learned anything today, remember those million little things that happen to you. Use it. Whether you broke up with your boyfriend, whether you lost your job or lost a family member. Well, the happy times too. Like I said, the universal symbol for theater is the mask for comedy and tragedy. Use it. You guys have been wonderful, Ruth. And thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
What Christmas show you talking about?
Well, it's just a musical review. We're doing some, we said we ain't doing no sad stuff. We're going to have, do you remember when it is? I think it's late November, early December. We're doing like a little Christmas review of some up-tempo Christmas songs. It's about 14 to 15 songs that we're doing. I don't think they're going to charge like full price for admission or anything like that, but it's going to be at the Arts and Science Center. There'll be some promotion on it soon.
You don't just throw that at us and not give us all of it, okay? Throw a little bit at me. I need more, okay?
But it's going to be something to get you into the mood for Christmas.
Yeah, you're going to say, let us know, because we want to come,
Yes.
I'm telling you that.
Yes, I definitely will.
All right, thank you.
And friend me on Facebook if you will, because we put everything on Facebook that we do. Again, it's Vane Colby, and you guys have been wonderful. Thank y'all.
Now, we're not going to let it go yet. Hold on a second there. Our president is about to come forward there.
Thank Colby, we always love having you on campus. I love
Oh.
watching you on the stage, I love listening to you this morning.
Oh, thank you.
And we can't thank you enough for all you do for the arts and culture that you bring to this community, and for giving our students and faculty a glimpse into the world of the theater, the world of the playwright, how you come up with your ideas. So we are just delighted to have you here, and on behalf of all of us, I'd like to present you with a certificate of appreciation, just a small token of our thanks for your time today.
Could I get a side shot right here?
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Would you send me a copy of that
Sure.
too? I want to put it on my Facebook page.
I'll be on your Facebook.
Oh, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. And we look forward to having your new production here.
Oh, please. Well, you just get in contact with Skip so they can get y'all booked.
Okay.
And you got Skip's number, I'm sure, or Joan
We can
has.
find him.
Okay, thank y'all.
And don't leave yet.